The alarm clock buzzed at 4:30 in the morning, just like it had every day for the past 2 years. Lisa rolled over and hit the snooze button, her tired eyes struggling to focus in the darkness. Her back ached from another night on the old couch that doubled as her bed. The kids needed the bedrooms more than she did. "Mom, is it time to get up?" came a sleepy voice from the hallway. It was her oldest daughter, Amy, peeking around the corner with messy hair and worried eyes. "Not yet, sweetheart. Go back to bed. I'll wake you up for school in a couple hours," Lisa whispered, trying to sound more energetic than she felt. Lisa dragged herself to the tiny kitchen and made instant coffee with lukewarm water. The electricity bill was overdue again, and she'd turned off the hot water heater to save money. She counted the bills in her worn purse, $23 and some change. That had to last until Friday, 3 whole days away. The apartment was quiet except for the hum of the old refrigerator that barely kept food cold. Lisa opened it and stared at the nearly empty shelves. Half a loaf of bread, some peanut butter, a few eggs, and milk that would expire tomorrow. She closed her eyes and took a deep breath. Somehow she always managed to make it work. Her phone buzzed. A text from her night shift supervisor reminding her about the extra hours available this week. Lisa's heart sank. More hours meant more money, but it also meant even less time with her children. She was already missing too much of their lives, working from sunset to sunrise cleaning office buildings downtown. At 6 a.m. sharp, Lisa gently woke up her 3 kids. Amy was 12 and had become like a second mother to her younger siblings. She helped 9-year-old Danny get dressed while Lisa prepared breakfast. Scrambled eggs split between 4 plates, making sure the kids got the bigger portions. "Mom, my shoes have a hole in them," 6-year-old Bella announced, holding up her worn sneaker. "Water gets in when I walk to school." Lisa's heart broke a little more. She knelt down and examined the shoe, trying to figure out a temporary fix. "Let's put some tape on it for now, okay? We'll figure something out soon." The morning routine was always rushed. Lisa helped pack lunches, peanut butter sandwiches, and the last apple cut into pieces for all 3 kids to share. She walked them to the bus stop, watching as other children climbed out of warm cars with their parents carrying lunch boxes she could never afford. "Will you be home when we get back from school?" Danny asked, tugging on her jacket. "I have to. Work my day job, but Amy knows what to do. You listen to your sister, okay?" Lisa hugged each of them tight, breathing in their scent and trying to memorize the moment. After the school bus disappeared down the street, Lisa walked 15 blocks to her day job at the grocery store. Her supervisor, Mrs. Peterson, was understanding about her situation but could only offer so many hours. The store was struggling too, and full-time positions were rare. "Lisa, I know you need more hours, but corporate is cutting our staff budget again," Mrs. Peterson explained during her break. "I'm doing what I can, but I can't promise anything." Lisa nodded, understanding but feeling the weight of responsibility growing heavier. She spent her 8-hour shift stocking shelves, checking prices, and helping customers, all while calculating how to stretch $23 over 3 days. During her lunch break, she sat in the store's break room eating a peanut butter sandwich and checking her phone for any messages from Amy. A picture appeared. Danny had drawn her a card at school that said "Best Mom Ever" in crayon letters. Lisa smiled despite everything, feeling that familiar mix of love and guilt that came with being a struggling single parent. The afternoon flew by, and soon it was time to head home before starting her night shift. The walk back to the apartment complex felt longer each day. Their building was in the older part of town where the paint was peeling and the parking lot had potholes that never got fixed. "Mom!" Bella ran to her as soon as she opened the door. "Look what I made in art class." She held up a drawing of their family, 4 stick figures holding hands under a rainbow. "It's beautiful, baby," Lisa said, scooping up her youngest daughter. "Did you do your homework?" "Amy helped us," Danny reported proudly. "And I only had to ask her 3 times to explain the math problem." Amy looked up from the kitchen table where she was doing her own homework. At 12, she was mature beyond her years, helping her siblings with homework and making sure they had snacks when they got home from school. Lisa worried about putting too much responsibility on her oldest daughter's shoulders, but she didn't have much choice. "Mom, The landlord called, Amy said quietly. He wants to talk to you about the rent. Lisa's stomach dropped. The rent was late again, just like last month. She'd managed to convince Mr. Rodriguez to give her a few extra days before, but his patience was wearing thin. The thought of losing their home, small and run down as it was, terrified her. I'll call him back, Lisa said, trying to keep her voice steady for the kids. Dinner was creative. Scrambled eggs again, this time with some day-old bread toasted to make it seem more special. The kids didn't complain. They'd learned not to ask for seconds when there wasn't enough food to go around. Tell us the story again, Mom, Bella asked as they sat around their small table. About when you were little and Grandma used to make those big Sunday dinners. Lisa smiled and began the familiar story about her childhood, when her own mother would cook huge meals for the whole extended family. She painted pictures with her words of tables full of food, laughter echoing through the house and the security of knowing there was always enough. The kids loved these stories, even though they lived in a very different reality. At 8 p.m., Lisa had to leave for her night shift. She kissed each child goodnight, reminding Amy to lock the door and call her if anything happened. The walk to the bus stop was getting colder as winter approached, and Lisa pulled her thin jacket tighter around her shoulders. The night shift was long and lonely. Lisa cleaned office buildings with a small crew of other workers who, like her, were doing whatever it took to survive. They mopped floors, emptied trash cans, and cleaned bathrooms in buildings where people made more money in a day than Lisa made in a month. Around 3 a.m. during her break, Lisa sat in an empty office lobby and looked at the city lights through the large windows. She thought about her children sleeping at home, probably huddled together for warmth since she'd turned down the heat to save money. She thought about the bills piling up on her kitchen counter and the groceries they needed, but she also thought about Amy's proud smile when she helped her siblings with homework, Danny's infectious laugh when he told jokes at dinner, and Bella's artwork covering their refrigerator. Despite everything they were going through, her children were growing up to be kind, resilient, and loving people. As she rode the bus home in the early morning darkness, Lisa made the same promise she made every day. She would find a way to give her children a better life. She didn't know how, but she refused to give up hope. Tomorrow would bring new challenges, but it might also bring new opportunities. The bus pulled up to her stop, and Lisa walked the familiar path home, ready to start another day in their difficult but love-filled life. The November wind cut through Lisa's thin jacket like a knife. She pulled her coat tighter and quickened her pace, trying to keep up with her 3 children who were practically running toward home. The grocery store bags felt heavier with each step, even though they contained so little, just the basics they could afford with their last $20.
Mom, can we please hurry? It's freezing out here, Amy complained, her breath creating small clouds in the cold air. She had her arms wrapped around her younger siblings, trying to keep them warm. I know, sweetheart. We're almost home, Lisa
replied, shifting the grocery bags to her other hand. Her fingers were already numb from the cold. They had walked this route dozens of times before. The bus fare was too expensive for all 4 of them, so walking the 1.5 miles from the grocery store had become their routine. Usually they took the main streets, but tonight the wind was so strong that Lisa decided to cut through the alley behind the old factory. It would save them 5 minutes and get them out of the bitter cold faster. Mom, I don't like this way. It's scary, 6-year-old Bella whispered, pressing closer to her mother's side. It's okay, baby. We'll be home soon, and I'll make us some hot cocoa, Lisa promised, even though she wasn't sure if they had enough milk left. The alley was darker than usual. One of the streetlights had burned out, and the shadows seemed to stretch longer between the buildings. Their footsteps echoed off the brick walls as they hurried along the narrow path between the dumpsters and loading docks. They were halfway through when they heard it, a weak, raspy coughing sound coming from somewhere in the darkness. What was that? 9-year-old Danny asked, stopping in his tracks. Lisa paused, listening carefully. There it was again, definitely someone coughing, but it sounded terrible, like whoever it was could barely breathe. Probably just a stray cat, Amy said quickly. Can we please keep going? I can't feel my toes anymore. But Lisa knew that wasn't a cat. That was definitely human, and whoever it was sounded like they were in serious trouble. She looked at her children, all shivering and eager to get home to their warm apartment, then looked toward the shadows where the sound was coming from. You guys wait right here for a second, she said, setting down the grocery bags. Mom, no. Amy grabbed her arm. We don't know who that is. What if it's dangerous? What if someone needs help? Lisa replied gently. How would you feel if that was me lying somewhere and people just walked by? The coughing came again, weaker this time, followed by what sounded like a moan of pain. Lisa walked carefully toward the sound, her heart pounding. Behind the large green dumpster, partially hidden by some cardboard boxes, she found him, an elderly man in what looked like an expensive suit, though it was now torn and dirty. He was lying on his side, barely, conscious, his breathing shallow and labored. Oh my goodness, Lisa gasped, kneeling down beside him. Sir? Sir, can you hear me? The man's eyes fluttered open for just a moment. His lips were blue from the cold, and there was a cut on his forehead. He tried to say something, but only managed another weak cough. Mom, what is it? Amy called from where the children were waiting. There's a man here and he's hurt really bad, Lisa called back. She looked around and noticed the man's wallet was gone, but he was still wearing what looked like an expensive watch. This wasn't a homeless person. Something terrible had happened to him. Lisa pulled out her phone and realized with a sinking heart that she only had a few minutes left on her prepaid plan. She'd been saving those minutes for emergencies, and this definitely qualified as one. I'm calling for help, she told the man, even though she wasn't sure if he could hear her. You're going to be okay. She dialed 911, her hands shaking from both the cold and the adrenaline. 1. What's your emergency? I found a man in an alley, and he's unconscious. He's breathing, but barely. I think he might have been attacked or something. He needs an ambulance right away. The operator asked for their location, and Lisa looked around frantically for street signs. We're in the alley behind Morrison Street, between the old factory and the apartment buildings. Please hurry. He looks really bad. While she was on the phone, Lisa took off her own jacket and covered the man with it, even though it meant she was now shivering in just her thin sweater. She couldn't stand the thought of him lying there in the cold. The paramedics are on their way, the operator said. Can you stay with him until they arrive? Yes, I'll stay, Lisa replied, knowing her phone minutes were almost gone. Mom, what are you doing? Danny asked, worry clear in his voice. This man is very sick, and we need to wait for the ambulance, Lisa explained, rubbing the man's arm gently, trying to keep him warm and conscious. But Mom, we need to get home. We don't even know him, Amy protested. What if whoever hurt him comes back? Lisa understood her daughter's fear. Amy had learned to be cautious, to protect her family first. In their neighborhood, minding your own business was often the safest choice, but Lisa couldn't walk away from someone who might die without help. Sometimes we have to take risks to do the right thing, Lisa said softly. This could be someone's father or grandfather. How would you feel if no one helped Grandpa Joe when he needed it? The children remembered their grandfather, Lisa's father, who had passed away 2 years ago. He had always taught them to help others when they could. I'm cold, Mommy, Bella whimpered, tears starting to form in her eyes. Lisa felt torn between protecting her own children and helping the stranger. She looked at the man's pale face and made her decision. Amy, take your brother and sister and stand by that light over there where it's warmer. Stay together and keep watch for the ambulance. I'll stay with him. The next 10 minutes felt like an hour. Lisa knelt beside the unconscious man, talking to him quietly, telling him help was coming. She tried to keep him warm and comfortable, while her own children huddled together nearby, cold and confused about why their mother was risking their safety for a stranger. Finally, they heard the sirens. The paramedics found them quickly, and Lisa stood back as they began working on the man. One of the EMTs checked his pulse and started an IV, while another asked Lisa questions about how she'd found him and what condition he'd been in. It looks like he's had a heart attack, one paramedic explained. You probably saved his life by calling when you did. A few more minutes in this cold, and it might have been too late. As they loaded the man onto a stretcher, one of the paramedics turned to Lisa. "We'll need your contact information. You're the only witness, and the police will want to talk to you about what you found here." Lisa gave them her name and phone number, watching as they wheeled the stranger toward the ambulance. His face had more color now, and his breathing seemed stronger. "Will he be okay?" she asked. "He's got a good chance now, thanks to you." The paramedic smiled. "You did the right thing." As the ambulance drove away, Lisa gathered her children and picked up their grocery bags. They walked the rest of the way home in silence, each lost in their own thoughts about what had just happened. "Mom," Danny said as they climbed the stairs to their apartment, "do you think we'll ever see him again?" "I don't know, sweetheart," Lisa replied, unlocking their door. "But I hope he gets better." None of them could have imagined that this moment of compassion would change their lives forever. 3 days had passed since that cold November night in the alley, and Lisa had almost convinced herself it was just another random moment in their difficult life. She was getting ready for her morning shift at the grocery store when she heard a gentle knock at their apartment door. "Mom, someone's here," Amy called from the living room where she was helping Bella with her breakfast. Lisa frowned, checking the time on her phone. It was barely 7 in the morning, too early for the landlord or any of their neighbors. She looked through the peephole and saw a well-dressed woman in her 40s holding a small bouquet of flowers and what looked like a gift bag. "Can I help you?" Lisa asked through the door, keeping the chain lock in place. "Are you Lisa Rodriguez?" the woman asked politely. "My name is Janet Kim. I believe you helped my father 3 nights ago." Lisa's heart skipped a beat. She quickly unlocked the door and opened it wider. "Your father? Is he okay? Is he alive?" Janet smiled warmly. "He's very much alive, thanks to you and your children. May I come in? I'd love to talk with you." Lisa looked down at her work uniform and then around their small, modest apartment. She felt embarrassed about the mismatched furniture and the toys scattered on the floor, but Janet seemed genuinely kind. "Of course, please come in. I'm sorry about the mess. The kids were just having breakfast before school." "Please don't apologize," Janet said, stepping inside. "You have a lovely home." The 3 children stared curiously at their visitor. Janet was clearly from a different world than theirs. Her clothes looked expensive, her hair was perfectly styled, and she carried herself with quiet confidence, but her smile was genuine and warm. "You must be Amy, Danny, and Bella," Janet said, kneeling down to their level. "My father has been asking about all of you every day. He calls you his guardian angels." "How is he doing?" Lisa asked, gesturing for Janet to sit on their old couch. "I've been worried about him. He's recovering well. The doctor said he had a massive heart attack, and if you hadn't found him when you did—" Janet's voice trailed off and her eyes filled with tears. "I almost lost my father that night." Lisa felt a lump in her throat. "I'm just glad we were walking that way. Anyone would have done the same thing." "No." Janet shook her head firmly. "Not everyone would have stopped. Not everyone would have given up their own jacket to keep a stranger warm. Not everyone would have used their last phone minutes to call for help." Lisa looked confused. "How did you know about the phone minutes?" The paramedic mentioned it in his report. "He said you told him you were worried about your phone running out of time while you were calling 911. Janet reached into her purse and pulled out a folded paper. "I hope you don't mind, but I had them run your phone bill through my father's company account. Your service has been paid up for the next year." "Oh no, you can't do that," Lisa protested, standing up quickly. "That's too much. We don't need charity." "It's not charity," Janet said gently. "It's gratitude. And it's just the beginning of what my father wants to do to thank you." Amy looked at her mother with wide eyes. "Mom, who is her father?" Janet smiled at the children. "My father is Robert Kim. He owns several businesses here in the city. He was walking to his car after a late business dinner when someone attacked him and took his wallet. The doctor said the combination of the attack, the stress, and the cold weather triggered his heart attack." "Why was he alone?" Danny asked innocently. "Doesn't he have bodyguards or something?" Janet laughed softly. My father has always been very independent. He came to this country with nothing 40 years ago and built everything through hard work. He doesn't like to make a big show of his success, so he often walks places by himself, just like he always has. Lisa was trying to process everything she was hearing. Your father is Robert Kim? Like Kim Industries Robert Kim? You know of his company? Janet asked, seeming pleased. I see the trucks around the city all the time, Lisa replied. I had no idea that was him in the alley. He wants to meet you and thank you properly, Janet continued. He's been asking the hospital staff about you every day. Would you be willing to visit him this afternoon? All of you? Lisa looked at her children, then back at Janet. I'd love to, but I have to work. I can't afford to miss any shifts. What if I talk to your supervisor? Janet asked. I could explain the situation and make sure you don't lose any pay for the time off. You don't understand, Lisa said, feeling uncomfortable. I work 2 jobs. If I miss one shift at either place, they might replace me. There are lots of people who need work. Janet's expression grew more serious as she looked around the apartment more carefully. She noticed the thin curtains, the space, heater in the corner instead of central heating, and the children wearing layers of clothes to stay warm. Lisa, if you don't mind me asking, how do you manage working 2 jobs with 3 children? Amy answered before her mother could. Mom works at the grocery store during the day and cleans offices at night. I watch Danny and Bella after school until she gets home in the morning. Janet's heart ached as she realized how much responsibility Amy carried at just 12 years old. That must be very hard for all of you. We manage just fine, Lisa said defensively, not wanting pity. I can see that you do, Janet replied respectfully. Your children are clearly well loved and well raised. My father will be so impressed when he meets them. She reached into the gift bag she'd brought. I hope you don't mind, but I brought some things for the children. Nothing too fancy, just some warm clothes and books. Inside the bag were 3 beautiful winter coats in the right sizes, along with warm gloves and hats. There were also several children's books and some art supplies. These are too expensive, Lisa protested. We can't accept these. Please, Janet said softly. Winter is coming and I noticed Bella's shoes have a hole in them. Let us help. My father would be heartbroken if he knew you were struggling and we did nothing. Bella picked up one of the coats, a bright purple one with a soft fur-lined hood. Mommy, it's so pretty. Can I try it on? Lisa looked at her daughter's hopeful face and felt her resolve weakening. The coat Bella was holding probably cost more than Lisa made in a week, but it would keep her baby warm through the winter. Just for a minute, Lisa agreed, and Bella squealed with delight as she put on the coat. It fits perfectly, Danny exclaimed, trying on his own blue jacket. Amy was more hesitant, but when Janet encouraged her to try on the red coat, it fit her like it was made just for her. How did you know their sizes? Lisa asked, amazed. I have 3 children of my own, Janet smiled. You learned to guess pretty accurately. As the children admired their new coats, Janet turned back to Lisa. There's something else. My father owns several apartment buildings around the city, including some really nice family complexes with good schools nearby. He has a vacant unit that he'd like to offer you at a very reasonable rent. No strings attached, just a way to say thank you. Lisa felt overwhelmed. This is all too much. I don't understand why your father wants to do so much for us. Because, Janet said, standing up to leave. 40 years ago, when my father first came to America, he was beaten and robbed just like he was 3 nights ago. But no one stopped to help him. He spent hours lying in an alley, bleeding and scared, until he finally managed to crawl to a hospital. He's never forgotten what it felt like to be alone and helpless. And he's never forgotten his dream of someday being able to help people the way he wished someone had helped him. She handed Lisa a business card. Here's my number and the hospital, room information. Please think about visiting him. It would mean the world to him to thank you properly. After Janet left, Lisa sat on the couch with her 3 children, all still wearing their new winter coats. She looked at the business card in her hand and wondered if this was really happening. Mom, Amy said quietly. Do you think our whole life is about to change? Lisa pulled her children close, not knowing how to answer that question. All she knew was that one act of kindness in a cold alley had somehow connected their struggling family to people who wanted to help them in ways she never could have imagined. The hospital smelled like disinfectant and floor wax, a sharp contrast to the warm autumn air outside. Lisa held Bella's hand tightly as they walked down the long hallway, their footsteps echoing on the polished floors. Amy and Danny flanked them on either side, all four of them wearing their new winter coats despite the mild weather inside. I'm nervous, Mom, Amy whispered as they approached room 314. Me too, sweetheart, Lisa admitted. But remember, this is just a man who wants to say thank you. He's probably more nervous than we are. Janet was waiting for them outside the room, her face lighting up when she saw them approach. I'm so glad you decided to come. Dad has been asking about you every hour. Through the open door, Lisa could see an elderly man sitting up in bed, his gray hair neatly combed and his eyes bright with anticipation. Despite being in a hospital gown, there was something dignified about him, a quiet strength that reminded Lisa of her own father. Dad, they're here, Janet called softly as she led them into the room. Robert's face broke into the biggest smile Lisa had ever seen. My guardian angels, he said, his voice still a bit weak but filled with genuine joy. Please come in. The children hung back behind their mother, suddenly shy in the presence of this man who seemed so different from anyone they'd ever met. But Robert's warm smile and gentle voice soon put them at ease. You must be Amy, he said, looking at the oldest girl. Your mother told Janet that you helped take care of your brother and sister. That's a big responsibility for someone your age. Amy blushed and nodded. It's not that hard. They're pretty good kids most of the time. And you're Danny, Robert continued, turning to the boy. I heard you asked the paramedics lots of questions about how ambulances work. Danny grinned. I want to be a paramedic when I grow up. Or maybe a doctor. I haven't decided yet. Both are wonderful choices, Robert said warmly. Then he looked at the youngest. And you must be Bella. Janet told me you're an artist. Bella giggled and pulled a folded piece of paper from her coat pocket. I drew you a picture of our family helping you. Mom said you might like it. Robert took the drawing with hands that trembled slightly, not from weakness but from emotion. The crayon picture showed stick figures of Lisa and her 3 children standing around another figure lying on the ground, with hearts drawn above all their heads. This is the most beautiful picture anyone has ever given me, Robert said, his eyes filling with tears. Thank you, Bella. I will treasure this forever. Lisa watched the interaction with growing amazement. This man was nothing like what she'd expected. Despite his obvious wealth and success, he treated her children with the same respect and kindness he might show to anyone. Please sit down, Robert said, gesturing to the chairs Janet had arranged around his bed. I have so much I want to tell you. As they settled in, Robert's expression grew more serious. First, I need you to understand something about that night. What happened to me wasn't random. I had just finished a business dinner at an expensive restaurant downtown. I was walking to my car when 3 men approached me. They didn't just want my wallet. They were angry, violent. They kept saying things about rich people who don't care about anyone else. Lisa felt a chill run down her spine. That's terrible. Did the police catch them? Not yet, but they're working on it, Robert replied. The point is, when those men attacked me, they weren't just taking my money. They were expressing their anger at people like me, people they see as having too much while others have too little. Looked directly at Lisa. And then, just hours later, a woman who has every reason to be angry at the system, who works 2 jobs just to feed her children, who has to walk miles in the cold because she can't afford a car. That woman risked her own safety and used her last precious phone minutes to save the life of a stranger who represents everything. That's unfair about her world. Amy looked confused. Mom, what does he mean? Lisa felt her cheeks burning. He means we're poor, honey, and he's rich. Some people think that's not fair. But that's not your fault, Danny said innocently. You work really hard. Robert leaned forward. Danny, you're absolutely right. Your mother works harder than most people I know, including myself. And that's exactly why what she did that night was so extraordinary. He turned back to Lisa. I need you to know who I am and how I got here, because I think you'll understand why your act of kindness means so much to me. Robert's voice grew, soft as he began his story. 40 years ago, I came to this country with nothing but a suitcase and $27. I couldn't speak English very well, and I didn't know anyone. I got a job washing dishes in a restaurant, working 16 hours a day for almost nothing. The children listened intently as Robert continued. One night, after working a double shift, I was walking home to my tiny apartment when 3 men jumped me in an alley, just like what happened the other night. They beat me up and took everything I had, my wallet, my watch, even my shoes. But the worst part was that dozens of people walked by while I was lying there bleeding, and no one stopped to help. That's so mean, Bella said softly. It was very mean, Robert agreed. But it also taught me something important. It taught me that when you have nothing and no one helps you, you never forget that feeling. And when you finally have something to give, you remember all the times you needed help and didn't get it. Lisa was beginning to understand. So, when we helped you, when you helped me, you gave me something I've been waiting 40 years to receive. Proof that there are still good people in the world who will help a stranger, even when they have nothing to spare. Robert reached over to his bedside table and picked up a folder. I've been thinking about this for 3 days and I've made some decisions. I hope you'll let me explain them before you say no. Lisa felt her heart racing. Mr. Kim, you've already done too much. The phone bill? The coats for the kids? Those were just small gestures, Robert interrupted gently. I want to offer you something much bigger. I want to offer you a job. A job? Lisa repeated, not sure she'd heard correctly. I need a personal assistant, someone I can trust completely, someone who understands what it means to work hard and take care of people. The salary would be 3 times what you make at both your current jobs combined, plus full health benefits for you and all 3 children. Lisa's mouth fell open. Amy grabbed her mother's arm. Mom, did he just say 3 times what you make now? But I don't have experience with that kind of work, Lisa protested. I stock shelves and clean offices. I don't know anything about business. You know about responsibility, Robert said firmly. You know about making hard decisions. You know about putting other people's needs before your own. Those are the most important qualifications for any job. Janet spoke up from where she'd been quietly watching. Dad, tell them about the other part. Robert smiled. There's more. I want to set up education funds for all 3 children, college funds that will pay for whatever they want to study wherever they want to go. Danny's eyes went wide. You mean I could really become a doctor? You could become anything you want, Robert replied. Doctor, scientist, teacher, artist, whatever makes you happy. Lisa felt overwhelmed. This is too much. I can't accept all this. What would people think? What would you expect from me? I would expect you to be exactly who you are, Robert said simply. Someone who cares about doing the right thing. Someone who raises children to be kind and responsible. Someone who doesn't walk away when another person needs help. He leaned back against his pillows, looking suddenly tired. Lisa, I built my company from nothing, but I never had children. I poured all my energy into business, and now I'm 68, years old with more money than I could spend in 10 lifetimes, but no family to share it with except Janet and her children. What are you saying? Lisa asked quietly. I'm saying that maybe you saved my life for a reason. Maybe I was meant to help you and your children the same way I wished someone had helped me all those years ago. Maybe this is God's way of bringing 2 families together who need each other. The room fell silent except for the quiet hum of the hospital machines. Lisa looked at her 3 children, all staring at her with hope and wonder in their eyes. She thought about their cold apartment, the overdue bills, the constant worry about having enough food and money for basic necessities. Can I think about it? She asked finally. Robert smiled. Of course, take all the time you need. But Lisa, I want you to know something. 3 nights ago, you didn't just save my life. You restored my faith in humanity. Whatever you decide, I We'll always be grateful for that gift. As they prepared to leave, Robert called out one more time. Amy, Danny, Bella, your mother is a hero. Don't ever forget that. Walking back through the hospital hallways, none of them spoke until they reached the parking lot where Janet was waiting to drive them home. Mom, Amy said softly, is this really happening to us? Lisa looked up at the sky, wondering the same thing herself. I think it is, sweetheart. I think it really is. 6 months later, Lisa stood in front of the large window in her new office, watching the city bustle below. It still felt like a dream. The corner office on the 15th floor of Kim Industries had become her second home, and she loved every challenging day of her new job as Robert's personal assistant. Mom, are you ready to go? Amy's voice came from the doorway. At 13, she had grown more confident and mature, but in the best possible way. She was still the responsible big sister, but now she had time to just be a kid too. Almost, sweetheart. Just finishing up these reports for Mr. Kim, Lisa replied, saving the document on her computer. The work was demanding but fulfilling in ways her old jobs never were. Robert trusted her with important decisions, valued her opinions, and treated her like a true partner in running his business. Is Grandpa Robert coming to Danny's science fair tonight? Bella asked, bouncing into the office wearing her new school uniform from the private academy where all 3 children now attended. Lisa smiled at how naturally the kids had started calling Robert Grandpa. He had encouraged it from the beginning, saying it made him feel like he finally had the family he'd always wanted. He wouldn't miss it for the world, Lisa assured her. You know how proud he is of Danny's robot project. The past 6 months had been a whirlwind of changes, but good ones. Robert had kept every promise he'd made in that hospital room. The job was everything he'd said it would be. Challenging, well-paid, and flexible enough for Lisa to be present for her children's lives in ways she never could before. Their new apartment was in a safe neighborhood with great schools, and for the first time in years, Lisa didn't lie awake at night worrying about money. The children's college funds were growing, and Lisa had even started taking night classes to finish her business degree. Mom, you should see what Danny built, Amy said excitedly. His robot can actually sort recycling by itself. The teachers say it's college-level work. And my art teacher says I might be able to get into that special summer program for young artists, Bella added, twirling around in her uniform dress. Lisa's heart swelled with pride. Her children were thriving in ways she'd only dreamed about. They had opportunities now that seemed impossible just months ago. But more importantly, they were still the same kind, caring kids they'd always been. Speaking of art, Lisa said, Grandpa Robert wants to hang your latest painting in the main lobby downstairs, Bella. He says everyone who visits the company should see what real talent looks like. Bella giggled. He says that about everything I make. That's because he means it, came a familiar voice from the hallway. Robert appeared in the doorway, walking with just a slight limp from his recovery but otherwise looking healthier than ever. Are my favorite people ready for Danny's big presentation? Grandpa Robert. Bella ran to him for a hug, which he gladly gave. How are you feeling today? Lisa asked, still protective of his health after everything they'd been through. Better than I felt in 20 years, Robert replied honestly. My doctor says having a family to worry about is the best medicine I could have asked for. As they gathered their things to leave for the science fair, Lisa reflected on how much their relationship with Robert had evolved. What had started as gratitude had grown into genuine love and mutual respect. He'd become not just their benefactor, but truly a grandfather figure who delighted in every milestone and achievement. The science fair was held in the gymnasium of their new school, a far cry from the underfunded school in their old neighborhood. Danny stood proudly next to his recycling robot, explaining to judges and visitors how he'd programmed it to identify different materials using sensors and artificial intelligence. The inspiration came from something my mom always taught us, Danny explained to a group of impressed parents. She said we should always try to help make the world a little better than we found it. I wanted to build something that could help the environment. Lisa felt tears prick her eyes as she listened to her son. Even with all the opportunities they now had, he still remembered the values she'd tried to instill during their hardest times. That young man is going to change the world someday, Robert whispered to Lisa as they watched Danny demonstrate his invention. They all are, Lisa replied, watching Amy help a younger student understand Danny's project while Bella drew pictures for the children who were waiting in line. Later that evening, back at their apartment, the family sat around their dinner table, a real dining room table in a real dining room, something Lisa had never imagined they'd have. Robert joined them for dinner most nights now, and these moments had become the highlight of everyone's day. I have some news to share, Lisa announced as they finished eating. I got my final grades back from this semester. And? Amy prompted, eagerly. Straight A's, Lisa grinned. Which means I'll be graduating with my business degree next month. The table erupted in cheers and applause. Robert beamed with pride as if Lisa were his own daughter. I'm so proud of you, Mom, Danny said seriously. You worked so hard for this. We all worked hard, Lisa corrected. This is a family achievement. Speaking of achievements, Robert said, pulling out an official-looking envelope. I have something for you, Lisa. Inside was a business license and legal documents. Lisa read through them with growing amazement. You're starting your own consulting company? Amy asked, reading over her mother's shoulder. With Robert as my first client and business partner, Lisa explained, looking at him gratefully. He wants to help me build something of my own. The student has become the teacher, Robert said warmly. Lisa has taught me more about running a business with heart than I learned in 40 years of doing it alone. Now it's time for her to share that wisdom with other companies. Over the following months, Lisa's consulting firm grew rapidly. Her specialty was helping businesses create better workplace cultures and employee support programs. Having lived through financial hardship herself, she understood what working families really needed. Her first major success was implementing a child care program at Kim Industries that allowed single parents to bring their children to work when necessary. The program became a model that other companies wanted to copy. I never would have thought of this without Lisa's perspective, Robert told a business magazine that featured their story. Sometimes the best business insights come from people who understand real-life challenges. A year later, Lisa's company had 12 employees, all of them single mothers from circumstances similar to her own. She'd created exactly the kind of opportunity she'd once desperately needed. Mom, do you ever think about that night in the alley? Amy asked one evening as they worked on homework together. Every day, Lisa replied honestly. It changed everything, for us. Do you think we were supposed to find Grandpa Robert? Bella wondered aloud. Lisa considered the question. I think we were supposed to be the kind of people who would stop to help someone who needed it. Everything else was just a blessing that came from doing the right thing. Like a reward for being good? Danny asked. Maybe, Lisa said. Or maybe it's just proof that kindness creates more kindness. Grandpa Robert helps us because someone once didn't help him. Now we're able to help other families because we remember what it felt like to need help. Robert, who had been quietly listening from the doorway, stepped into the room. Your mother is exactly right. Every act of kindness creates ripples that spread farther than we can imagine. He sat down with them, something he did almost every evening now. I spent 40 years building a successful company, but I was missing the most important thing, people to share it with. You didn't just save my life that night, you saved my heart. As Lisa tucked her children into their beds that night, she marveled at how much their lives had changed. They lived in a beautiful home, attended excellent schools, and never worried about having enough food or warm clothes. But the most important change wasn't material. They had become part of something bigger than themselves. Robert had shown them that success meant lifting others up, and they had shown him that wealth without love was just emptiness with money. Sweet dreams, my loves, Lisa whispered, kissing each child goodnight. Mom, Bella said sleepily. I'm glad we helped that man. In the alley. Me too, baby, Lisa replied. Me too. Outside their window, the city sparkled with lights, full of people facing their own struggles and dreams. Somewhere out there, Lisa knew, other families were walking through alleys, making choices about whether to stop and help or keep walking. She hoped her story would inspire them to choose kindness, because you never know whose life you might save, or whose life might save yours in return. The little girl who once went to bed hungry had grown into a woman who made sure other children never had to. And it all started with one moment of compassion on a cold November night, proving that sometimes the smallest acts of kindness create the biggest miracles.